Well, hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the build of the Skymaster F14. This thing is really coming together. This is the third video of the organizing of the front end of the aircraft. We are getting very close and a lot of cool things are going to happen this week, so stay tuned and we'll have some fun with this thing this week. All right, so previous videos, we have been organizing the front end and we are continuing with organizing the front end, but we're moving into wiring and some of that kind of stuff. So this is gonna be a busy week because we have this plane happening. The owner David's coming on Thursday, Friday. We're gonna spend a bunch of time doing programming and checking things over and stuff like that, running the engines. So that's all gonna be part of this video. So yeah, let's do this. It's gonna be awesome. Okay, so next step here is we are going to start getting all of this wiring sorted out and basically run into the central box. Now, most of it's pretty straightforward. We've got some special things happening here. The other thing that I was chatting with David about was the telemetry modules, and we need access to those telemetry modules. So what's going to happen is we're going to basically pull those telemetry modules out that we had buried underneath the tray there in the last video, and we're going to make them accessible. So anyways, that's not really a big deal, but kind of the next step here is just crimping ends on of these power box wires and getting them run to the appropriate leads. So that's the next big thing. Kind of boring stuff, but we need to get that done. All right, so we've got all of the, I guess I call it the normal wiring complete. So these are all the power box leads that have come to the central box location. Now we do have the swing wing leads here, which we're going to do something special with. So just to tell you what we're going to do first, we're going to have the signals go into the appropriate output, but we're going to have the power go into the BEC output. And we're going to use BEC number 1, which is going to be a little bit higher voltage. On these central boxes, you can adjust the voltage of each of these sections, right? So that's what's going to happen there. So we'll have the power come to the MPX input and the signal go to the appropriate signal. So that's what's happening with that. And then now we're going to start doing all the other wiring. So all of these other outputs get filled, but they're things like the air valves there, stuff like that. So for the canopy on this aircraft, we will be using a Zykoy sequencer. Now the reason we're using a sequencer is kind of because we're out of channels. That's one of the issues. Yes, we have successfully used 24 channels on this aircraft. Just to give you a visual here, this is how things are laid out. So we've got one channel set aside for the canopy, which keeps things easy because we can just have number 19 go into the sequencer, and then we'll have the sequencer deal with our 2 air valves to make the canopy work. So that's what's happening with the canopy. So we still have a bunch of leads to run. We do have our airlines still to run for the canopy lock, which we've got the 2 locks up front there. So keep in mind that needs to happen. So still lots to happen in this front end, but we are making some amazing progress. All right, the swing wing is all wired here, so hopefully this makes sense now. So we've got the red and blue wires, positive, negative wires coming to the MPX connector here. And then we've got the signal wires going to output number 13, and those are all connected to the swing wings. Now the swing wings operate just like a servo, so essentially that's why they can be wired together in one output, because they're just using your servo resolution for the positioning of the swing wings. So that's a great way to wire it, and we've got a nice strong power supply from the BEC output. And that should work out amazingly well. All right, and just a little tip here for you guys. Just remember, you don't always need to come straight off on the battery connectors like that. So in a situation like this, where that cockpit is sitting quite close to the central box here, even on the main powers, we may need to come off sideways, which is fine. One little tip is I like to use, you can use a couple different things, but shoe goop works really well in this situation just to cover up those leads and obviously make sure that nothing's going to touch them and they're covered and everything and safe. You can also use hot glue as well from a glue gun. I wanted black in this case, but the hot glue works really well as well. With the shoe goop, you may have to put 2 layers on here because it flows. So you install the shoe goop, let it cure, and then put another layer just over top of the pins right here where bent screwdriver is showing you. And that will provide protection for those leads. All right, so a little bit more progress here. So I've added the lines on the canopy lock. We've run those air lines forward. And right now they're just run to right there. We're gonna add a T, and those T's are gonna feed each side of the canopy lock cylinders, which are right there. Also, you can see the red and the white lines coming out. What I've done is put the jetty speed sensor, and we've put that where the machine gun is on the aircraft. So I've just got it taped in place right now so the shoe goop can cure, but it's only sticking out about 1 centimeter, so about just over or just under 1/2 inch, and just poking out of the machine gun hole right there, which is cool because it's pretty much hidden. And then we've also added the Unilight power source right here. Now this is going to power all of the light system on the aircraft, so I've just soldered those lines on, and we're just going to put a bit of shoe goop over top of the leads there just to obviously get rid of the exposed leads. All right guys, so next thing we've tackled here is the sequencer on the canopy open and close. So right now the canopy's open.
Canopy unlocked and open.
Oh, sorry, wrong way. So canopy lock unlocks and canopy opens. Now we'll close it.
Canopy down and locked.
So you'll see the canopy light turn and then the lock turn. So now that's all programmed and good to go. Now I've talked about this many times in previous videos, but the way to set these Zykoi sequencers up is you've got your up sequence, which in this case is canopy open, your gear down sequence, which we are using as canopy close, and you basically have both conditions. So we want the valves to be at C and C at the up condition or open, and we want the valves to be at O and O in the down or close condition, and you just write out each of the steps as you go through the system, and it just makes programming it way easier to have that visual there. All right, so the nose cone is all painted, and we'll get this installed, and that will facilitate the next step of getting the battery lead plugins created. So pretty simple step here. It only goes on one way, and so you really don't have a choice with this guy. And it is held on with 4 screws. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so before we got the nose bolted on, we finished running the airlines for the canopy lock. So you can see there we put some organizers on the aircraft. We came to the T's and we split the T's, one going up, one coming across this other direction to this lock on that side. Other thing is the speed sensor, airspeed sensor, which is located over there, is also run and installed. So again, we put some organizer clips and we put the, I think it's the M speed sensor mounted right there. All right guys, so we're just getting the nose cone fit here, and the way that this thing mounts is nose cone fits on, and then we've got this aluminum tip that threads on. Now, there's too much rod here. So we've got about, I'd say 4 millimeters or so that we need to cut off. So because this is already installed, I got something special for you. Perhaps even this episode's tip time, which is brought to you by trusty bent screwdriver. Okay, so what we're going to do in this case, because our part is already installed, we're going to take a 3 millimeter blind nut, and we are going to install this where we want to cut. Now the nice thing about the blind nut is it actually gives you a bit of a guide as to where to cut. So we've got our blind nut installed, we've got roughly the right amount to cut off, and then the other reason to install the blind nut is so when you back this off, it actually cleans up the threads as well. So now, if we take that nose cone, get that installed, take our aluminum piece, and it should be perfect. All right guys, so we are going to be using some of these Pro Airframe RC parts. We haven't placed our order yet with Pro RC to have them on the website, but based on your feedback, I think we're going to be doing that soon. And this is the first aircraft we're going to be using / trying these things out on. Really impressed so far with these, especially these XT60 mounts. These are going to be the turbine battery mounts, and these are pretty awesome units. These are the panel, what do they call these? A panel mount, and happy with that. So initially, I think what I'm going to do is mount the turbine battery plugins, and they're going to be mounted right there. I'm just using this battery just kind of as a guide, so we have an idea of how big the batteries are going to be, how much space they're going to take up. So this is a 3-cell 5200 milliamp battery, so this gives me an idea of, you know, one of the bigger size batteries that or too big of a battery that may be mounted there. So anyways, we're going to put the turbine battery plugins here, and I think that's going to work out good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the MPX ones off for the receiver batteries, which are these guys right here. I think we can maybe mount them right down there. We could also mount them in the lower portion like that. So we want to get the center of gravity on this aircraft done before we kind of finalize this. We could also put those up there. So lots of different options where these things can mount. And these are the MPX connectors, the green connectors. So anyways, I'm going to put the turbine ones here. And so these are the leads that I cut off the original connector to extend the wire, and then we can just solder these guys back on, and that's how they fit. Now the way these things work in here is they just slip in. One side has the little flat piece there, and the other side has nothing. And what I'm going to do is I would just use some shoe goop on these things. You could also use CA as well too, and just give that a couple drops of adhesive, and they're going to stay put really nicely. All right guys, so we've got the leads installed here for the turbine leads. Now I have put some CA on this side, and I like the design of these things. It actually works out quite well. So there's little indents on this side here, and then also a bevel all the way around the fitting. So it's pretty conducive to having CA installed in that. And if that connector ever needs to come out, it's going to be easy to just pop that out. So I was going to think about using shoe goop on the back side, but I think just some medium CA on that side makes more sense. All right, so we have spent a bunch of time doing amazing things in this aircraft. Yes, it looks messier than it did before, but give it some time and it will look cleaner. We've spent some time getting the receiver set up, the Cortex set up, some wiring done, speed sensor set up, so that is all kind of in progress and working. We are ready to do a gear test on this aircraft, so that is going to be one of the next things that we're working on. Everything should be pretty straightforward, but you never know what you're going to run into. So let's check the gear. So we actually had a couple gear things going on here that I'll talk about. I'll try and be as brief as possible. So we actually ended up taking the entire main board out, and the reason for that was we thought there was a gear leak or an air leak, and it was just one of the gears wasn't fully cycled, so holy, what a waste of time. Anyways, we got an intimate review of what everything looks like underneath the board. We've just been spending time organizing stuff here and getting things kind of wired up. So it's a pretty slow process, you know, getting the receiver installed and running the wires. So that's what I've been doing this morning. A couple things here, these button wire keepers, I absolutely love them. They're probably my most favorite 3D printed part that I sell on my website. So very, very cool. Anyways, we've been working on that stuff and things are going together very nicely. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the gear on the Skymaster F14. So the linkage here, I'm not sure what that's called, but this linkage design is extremely flawed, and the reason for it is when the gear goes up, it goes this way, and when it comes down, the only thing holding that from extending more is the air cylinder and that little plastic ball joint right there. So what's happened is these things have actually snapped on us. So we've replaced this one while we were cycling the gear, and I'm just looking at this one again, and I think this one's also cracked again. So we will need to replace these. But there's a fellow on Facebook, Michael. I'll put his contact info down below, I think. And basically, he's designing new linkages here that don't overextend. So they actually have stops built in, and they will mechanically stop at this point. So we have gotten the gear to cycle very nicely. One of the downsides with this gear too is if you have too much pressure in the main strut, you have to remember that when this thing goes up, it rotates, and this collar right here rotates, and the main shaft inside the main leg rotates. So if you have too much air, you've got a lot of friction on the main seals, and that prevents it from rotating. So we were really struggling with this gear last night. Kind of had that thought in my head, ended up taking a bunch of the air out, so it still has air in it, but it's quite squishy, but the gear actually works now. So very good. I don't know if we're gonna actually cycle it again just because those do need to get changed. And we do definitely need those new linkages on there. So thank you to Michael for designing those things. We are waiting on a set of them, so we don't have them yet. Hopefully they come soon, and we can update you guys on those linkages. So when they do arrive, they should be pretty simple to put in. Obviously, we'll just have to paint them and get them installed. So, but yeah, definitely a serious flaw in the Skymaster F14 kit, because that is just a problem waiting to happen. So anyways, contact information for him is down below, and if you guys are building an F14 or you have an F14 and you've been struggling with that stuff, just give Michael contact him, and he'll be able to set you up. So just doing some basic programming here. The turbines are all primed and ready to go. We have put the leads on the Unilite leads and plugged them into the controllers. So there's still 2 open ports left. Those are for the wing marker lights, right and left, but otherwise everything else is plugged in. Getting ready to run the turbines and make some noise. All right guys, we are about ready to run this aircraft. So there's still a bunch of organizing to do, but basically we've been just playing with programming. We got the compressor, the onboard compressor all set up. The turbines are primed, and they're ready to go. We haven't added fuel to the entire system yet. We put the little remove before flight pins on here, the keepers. Those prevent the scissor legs from collapsing without air in the system. Elevators are installed, programming's not done yet. All the lights are basically working, except we haven't programmed the system yet. So when we turn this plane on, you'll see that the front lights here are not running, but the rest of them are. So everything looks good fingers crossed that the JetSmunts engines run beautifully. We did, as a last thing here, make up our wing connectors for the lights in the wing and run those to the controller. So that part's all done as well too. And our little boards here are installed probably for the last time because we've got all of our lines run. So next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pop this thing on the ground, get some fuel in it, and get ready to run these turbines. All right, guys, we are full of fuel and we are ready to run turbine number 1. So we're gonna be running these one at a time. The compressor itself is teed into this battery plug. So we're gonna run this turbine, the left turbine, turbine number 1 first. Once that one's confirmed good, then we'll do the other turbine, and then we'll run them at the same time. Well, ultimate fail. We just ran turbine number 1 and forgot to push record on the camera. That happens. So we're gonna run turbine number 2, the other side, and do that turbine as well. Went off without a hitch, turbine ran perfect, just like it's supposed to. Full power is nuts. This thing's gonna be bonkers with both of these turbines running. So let's take a look at the other turbine and we'll do our test run on that one. All right, guys, other turbine ran perfectly, just like it's supposed to, and we are just about to do a dual turbine run. So both turbines at the same time. We're gonna close the hatches as well too, and this is gonna be nuts. You want to feel this? All right, guys, so that was definitely a successful turbine run. Some of the stuff that we're looking for during those turbine runs are as follows. So you're feeling the whole back end of the aircraft, making sure that there's no hot spots, heat issues, and you could get really technical and use a temperature gun, but it's really not that necessary in my opinion. Some of the areas, they all felt cool, except of course where the tail cone is. It was just slightly warm, probably maybe 40 degrees Celsius. So you're talking about like 100 degrees Fahrenheit type thing. And then the other area that was that we were really paying attention to was the tail cones, and those are a non-issue as well too. So really impressive turbine runs. These things are going to be phenomenal in this aircraft. And now if that's not a highlight of the video enough for you, it's time to get into the swing wings. All right, wings are on, and that gets real big real quick. So we haven't done anything with the wings yet. We've just installed them. Done up the connector there, just like we've shown in the build videos, and that's how everything looks when the wings are plugged in. And there she is, all folded back. Awesome. So the unilights are doing their thing, shining bright. All right, so we're just getting things lined up here for the center of gravity checks. It's a little bit hard to read in the manual as far as what they're suggesting. So looking online here, and we've come up with some other numbers that have come from some build threads. So 916 and 158 on the Zykoy CAG machine was pretty typical. We came up with 923 and 137, but our 137 measurement was right to the face of the swing wing mechanism. So, and again, it's a little bit difficult to understand what Skymaster is saying. So we've entered in 148. We'll see what happens there and kind of go from that point. So the one thing that's critical when you're using the electronic version, of course, is your measurements. It needs to be very, very accurate. I've covered how to do this in many other videos. What we're going to do is we're just going to lay everything on the actual aircraft. So we're going to lay the cockpits on there, put the pilots in there, put the canopy on there, the rest of the plane, pretty straightforward. Obviously the wings are on, and that will allow us to add weight to the front and see how much weight we have to play with. Okay, so we haven't added any weight and haven't checked the CAG yet, but we're sitting at 57.79 pounds dry. Go to CFG. So we are 2.6 pounds tail heavy. So we're going to add some batteries to this and see how it affects everything. All right, so we ended up doing a bunch of calculations with the batteries, and we kind of are settling on a couple things here. So if we add 1188 grams to the nose, that brings us to 148 millimeters in front of the main legs for the CFG. If we do 1364 grams of nose weight, that brings us to what other guys have used as 158. So I think that's kind of what we're shooting for. So if we go with three 3-cell 4,000 milliamp lipos, one 3-cell 5,000 milliamp lipo, that brings us to 1,295 grams, which is gives us about 70 grams of play. So we're going to be in this range roughly for our batteries and for our nose weight. So that's kind of what we ended up figuring out. All right, guys. Well, very successful couple days here in the shop, hanging out with David and just working through everything about this aircraft. battery charger. And we got a lot accomplished. There are many things still left to do on this aircraft, but a big portion of it is now complete. We do have some gremlins to deal with, and those gremlins basically are two major things. So number one is those gear scissor linkages, which we've already got a solution for them. We need to wait for that solution. Again, contact information for Michael, the fellow that's making the new scissor linkages with the physical stop, is listed down below. And the other thing that we've had an issue with is we showed you guys a little bit earlier in this video the swing wing working, and unfortunately the mechanism for the swing wing from Skymaster, the actuators just stopped working. When you actuate them and kind of push on the wing, they still work, but totally sporadic and definitely not reliable. So we're going to get some stronger actuators directly from Accutronics, some of their 250 Newton actuators, and we're going to get those ordered. We're going to order an extra one as well too, so we have it, but hopefully that solves the problem with these actuators. And I don't know what happened to them. We're going to pull them apart as well too and take a look at them. But yeah, so those are the big things we need to change. Then we just need to go through and finish up wiring and little details and some finishing touches on the paint and name changing and stuff like that. So the next video that we do, there'll be a lot. It's going to be kind of over a very long period of time. So this is basically the majority of the build is now complete. We do have cockpit to go in, pilots, and all that kind of stuff. So there would be more coming, but it's going to be probably a fair while until we have those videos up for you guys. So thank you guys for watching the series. Very much appreciate it. Thank you for all your support on the channel. And also, thank you to you guys that have donated to the Shop Build Fund. Your names are scrolling across the screen here. Thank you to all you guys that have donated to the Shop Build Fund. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you again for watching the F14 build series. Again, we do have a couple more videos probably to come. Maiden is going to be happening mid-June. Roughly around mid-June. So keep an eye out for that. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to give the video one of these. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber, and we will see you in the next video.